What's going on, people? My name is Tasherre Risay. I'm an instructor at Computer Music Academy, and welcome to the reincarnation of the Beat Breakdown. This was a series I used to do where I basically just recreated beats right in front of you that I've made, in some cases, years ago, and just basically show you how I did it as far as chopping samples, laying a pattern, blah, blah, blah. In this particular series, I decided to bring it back and do something a little different. What we're going to do now is take you through beats that I've created that are more recent, like for instance, like my weekly homework assignment submissions, and take you through every element as far as the pattern, the effects and the plugins that I used, certain techniques, just basically giving you a better idea of how I put things together. So in this particular episode, I'm going to show you uh, week my submission for week 39 of the weekly homework podcast or assignment. If you don't know about that, that's basically over at Computer Music Academy. I give the people an assignment every week, and they have 7 days to return a finished product based on the instructions and samples or instruments or whatever that I give them. So we had taken 3 months off between seasons, kind of relax, reset, refresh some things. And I gave the people an assignment to where they had actually had 2 weeks because this was going to be the very first week of the second season. So they had 2 weeks to create a beat that's very representative of their style and of them. And they also had to do a 30-second intro video along with it. So I gave that to the people, and I went over here and I started, fixing stuff up on the website and working on other courses. And as it got closer to the due date, I basically wrote myself off for doing the submission because I hadn't gave myself any time. So on the day that it was due, I sat down and I was actually getting ready to do a tutorial for something entirely different. But I was going to make a demo track for that tutorial. Started opening up plugins, and I opened up Addictive Drums, one of my favorite plugins of all time. This is very dope acoustic drum sounds. Crazy. This is the Black Oyster Dry Crunchy kit. That's in the retro pack, and that's under modern. Anyhow, opened that up, started playing around, and I came up with this pattern. And little by little things started coming together. So yeah, I used Addictive Drums, and I actually have the Ableton Redux plugin in there because I wanted to kind of crunch it up a little bit, reduce the bit, make it sound almost kind of 12-bit, but it didn't work out. So I ended up taking that out. But I did use Supercharger from Native Instruments. Really, really dope plugin. I used the Ableton Saturator just a little bit, only drove it 1 dB and a little EQ. Put that together. And I think what came out of it was very, very nice. So after that, I opened up the Analog Laboratory. Now, if you're not familiar with this plugin, this is really cool. Arteria makes this thing called the V Collection, which is a lot of old school analog synths, emulations of them, basically. And that's a whole package in itself. But what the Analog Laboratory is scaled down versions and only a certain number of presets for each one of those synths. The cool thing about this is it's all in one package. So you can go from a Jupiter V to a Mini V to a whatever else. Anyhow, opened that up, started playing around, and I came up with this. And the funny thing is, I normally do bass lines after drums. I don't know why. It normally happens that way, but this came to me, and I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. So I ended up going to another instance of Analog Laboratory. Because once again, at this point, I'm making a demo for this tutorial. So put that in there, and I used the ARP 2600 this time, as opposed to Jupiter over there. And ended up coming up with this pattern. And you can see that it's panned the opposite ways. and it kind of gives it a fuller sound because there is a different pattern on both, a slightly different pattern on both of the instruments. So it makes it sound a little bit more full. You have presence from both in that particular instance. So I like that. And once again, still in demo mode, not even thinking this is going to be anything else. I go over and I do another instance of Analog Laboratory. And that's one thing about me that you'll find is that once I open up a plugin, and if it has everything I need, I will continue to use it. And you'll see that as we go through the rest of this video. So at this point, I'm like, well, let me check out bass. Let me see what's going on with that. Open up the ARP 2600. Came up with this. Like that, nice and fat. So I said, you know what? Let me fatten it up a little bit. Opened up another instance, once again. And this time I used the Mini V and came up with this. Yeah. And I put both of them in a group so I can control the volume of both and put the effects in the group as opposed to on each one. And just EQ'd it a little bit, brought the bass up, make it sound a little bit more fuller. Yeah, I like how that turned out. So slowly but surely, this track is starting to come together. And by now, we're up to this right here. Yeah. So now I end up opening up Omnisphere, which is excellent plugin. It has a little bit of everything in there. And I wanted something hit me to where I wanted to add an organ. I wasn't sure what type of organ, whether it was like just a regular organ, like a jazz organ, but I ended up going with this church organ called Go to Church. And let me show you what I did with it here. Let me cut this off real quick. This is how I put it together. And it's crazy because I'm really not a keyboard player, not at all. I can actually play stuff by ear and I could cheat. But I came up with that. So the other thing that you'll notice is that rake is in there, which is, and once again, I don't know how to play. So I had to cheat with that. And I did the first part. And then I went back later and did just overdubbed it. So now you get this whole thing. Yeah, so now the track starts opening up a little bit more, and we came up with this. Yeah, so slowly but surely this thing is coming together, and at this point, I'm not knowing what I'm doing exactly. I'm not knowing if this is actually going to be the submission. I'm still working in, tutorial mode, demo mode. So the next thing I started to do, because I started getting a little bit more inspired, I said, well, let's make a like a fill-in track. So if we were actually going to the next pattern, or in this case, the hook, this is what I did. So now things are starting to move and I'm feeling good about the track. And I'm like, well, okay, this is a little more than what I was expecting to do for the demo. So I started getting ideas for a hook, and it's crazy. So I took pretty much the same instruments and I started using another instance of Analog Laboratory, but I used the Oberheim SEMV for this one. And I added this pattern right here. Yeah. And what I ended up doing to it, that's the patch by itself. Threw on the chorus and a little simple delay. Gives a little bit more panning left to right. More of a stereo sound at that point. So that came together. And slowly but surely, the rest of the track comes together. So this is the hook now. So as I'm listening to this hook, and I'm like, man, this is cool. I want to do something different with that organ. So then I went in, EQ'd it a little bit, threw on a little reverb, and I threw on one of my favorite plugins in Ableton, the Auto Pan. And this is what I came up with. And you hear how it's just panning back and forth real crazy. Almost like a Leslie, almost, but not quite. But it kind of gives you that feel, that effect. Yeah. So things are really coming together at this point. And I'm like, man, something else needs to go with this. And I go back to Omnisphere. As I said before, if I got a plugin that has everything I need for this particular track, I will continue to use that. So at this point, I mess around and open Omnisphere. And I get the chorus or choir. Yeah. That just sounded so crazy to me. Played around with that and put it all together. And I did 2 instances of Omnisphere for this particular thing and panned them and made it real wide. And as you can see in the group track for that, little EQ, little compression, the speech enhancer preset of the multi-dynamics plugin. Yeah, sickening. So now I'm really feeling everything come together now. So that's the hook. Then I decided to create a fill-in for the hook going back into the track. Yeah, everything's coming together at this point. So then I go over to arrangement view. I start tracking everything out. And I wanted to start it like, this sounded like a band for real. So of course I started out with, and then the track just comes in so scantless to me. Little intro. The Unstoppable. Yeah, you weren't supposed to hear that just yet. What that is right there is my tag. And I basically did the, what I call the reverse reverb effect on that. And that's how you hear that. Let's hit it again. The Unstoppable. Yeah, where it's kind of sound like, yeah, it's so cool that it hits at that part right before the full beat comes in. And let's hit that one more time. The Unstoppable. Yeah, I loved how that came in. So after that, we had whew, then it all started coming together more and more. At this point, I'm not thinking about a damn tutorial. I'm being very honest. I'm like, this track is cold, man. I got to keep going with it. So I started tracking everything out and adding instruments and different instances and whatnot. And then on top of the hook, I'm like, wait a minute, it definitely needs something else. So I pulled out another instance of Analog Laboratory and played this directly into arrangement view. That's the modular V. Yeah. So at this point, like I said, I'm not even thinking about a tutorial. I'm not thinking about anything or anybody else because I'm really into how this track is coming together. And it came together as I continued to sequence and arrange it. And at the very end of it, I was like, you know what? Something has to set this off to separate this from any other track that I've ever done. And I came up with the guitar. Something told me this thing needed like a rock or a lead guitar in there. So I'll go back to Omnisphere and put a PRS lead in there. And once again, I don't know how to play, but I actually figured it out and I cheated my way through this. Now I say cheated, but I did actually play that in one go. I didn't do anything else. And at that very last note, in certain instruments in Omnisphere, if you actually hit it, you know, it's velocity sensitive or touch sensitive. And you have one note, but if you hit it hard enough, you get that. And there it is. That is how it all came together. I really enjoyed my submission. There is a lot more to come of the Beat Breakdown series, of the Weekly Homework podcast, of just stuff in general on the Tasherre Risay music channel. And if you are interested in any of the Computer Music Academy stuff, go over to the Computer Music Academy channel or just go to the website. But thank you for letting me sit here and kind of rant and reminisce on creating this track. And I will talk to you next time. See ya.
The Unstoppable.